When you think about the biggest weak point in Cities Skylines 2, what comes to mind? Go ahead, drop it in the comments below. I'm waiting. Did you do it? Okay. If you're like me, you probably wrote down zoning. In my opinion, zoning is one of the most frustrating systems in the entire game. Sure, buildings are larger and more detailed than in Cities 1, but zoning still refuses to conform to irregular parcels like in Manor Lords. We don't even have the option to disable zoning on roads like we did with the vanilla tools in Cities 1. But the real problem is how unpredictable it all is. It breaks constantly, and if you modify a road or even nudge it slightly, buildings lose their zoning and despawn without warning. I've actually heard from countless players that they're so fed up with how this works that they either plop every building by hand or quit the game entirely. The mod I'm going to be showcasing today changes all of that. It makes zoning predictable, consistent, and genuinely enjoyable to use. It gives you far more control than we ever had in Cities 1. And while it still doesn't perfectly conform to irregular parcels, it gives you a way to easily imitate that effect. This new mod is called Platter, and it was created by an incredibly talented modder by the name of Luca. That name might sound familiar if you've ever used the RoadBuilder Toggler mod or saw the recently released redesigned dev menu or redesigned top buttons mods. And I've got to say, I love this thumbnail, it's hilarious. Outside of those projects, they're relatively new to the scene. They've never modded for Cities 1, and they're dropping this absolute monster of a mod out of nowhere. And I say that Platter's a monster because it's an absolutely essential mod. Think of Platter being for zoning what RoadBuilder was for roads. It's separating zoning from the road entirely and handing you full control. It takes a system that's been rigid since Cities 1 and makes it flexible, intuitive, and powerful in a way that the base game just simply doesn't offer. It's a genuinely game-changing mod. And in this video, I'm going to show you everything it can do. But before you ask, this mod is not yet released, but it will be soon. Jump in my Discord and I'll ping everyone the moment that it drops. I'll also leave a link in the pinned comment below as soon as it's been released. But before we jump into the video, okay, be honest. Have you started your holiday shopping yet? If not, I might have the perfect idea for you. For years, my wife and I have been giving Bombas to our family, going back to before I even had this YouTube channel. A few pairs make a great standalone gift, or you can toss in a pair as a stocking stuffer. Everyone that we've ever given them to has absolutely loved them, and a lot of them have even switched to Bombas as their primary sock brand after getting them as gifts. And it makes sense. Bombas fit well, they're super comfortable, and they last forever. And if everyone you know already has all the socks they could ever need, no problem. Bombas has plenty of other great gift ideas too, like their gripper slippers and their Sunday slides, both of which I've personally owned for years and absolutely love. And what I really appreciate about Bombas is that you're not just giving a quality gift, you're supporting a good cause. And that's because for every item you purchase, they donate an essential item of clothing to someone in need. And to date, Bombas has donated over 150 million items, which I think is incredible. They also stand behind their products with their 100% happiness guarantee. If you're not happy for any reason, they'll take care of returns or exchanges, no questions asked, even if this happens. So feel good and do good with Bombas. New customers get 20% off their first purchase. Just go to bombas.com/cityplanner and use code cityplanner at checkout. Thanks again to longtime channel partner Bombas for sponsoring the video. Now let's get back to it. So just for the fun of it, I decided to recreate Middleton, Wisconsin, Middleton being a suburb on the western side of Madison. And I think it looks pretty good because I used image overlay and traced basically every natural feature and every road. But here's the thing. When you use image overlay and you trace all the roads, you end up with a couple of issues. First of all, my scaling's a little bit off, so the roads are really close to one another. And secondly, the roads are not at all straight. So that means that our zoning is going to be completely crazy, and yes, indeed it is. We've got 4 units, 5 units deep right here. We're having the zoning snapping to different roads. This would be an absolute nightmare to try to get right using the vanilla tools. So honestly, I wouldn't even attempt. Using paths and things like that to try to make the zoning attached to the right road is just a really tedious endeavor. So I would likely use mods for this, and there are really 2 approaches. You could use art to try to toggle zoning and get zoning to appear in the right road. That might work, but it would be very difficult. Or you could plop each and every building with plop the growables and find it. My guess is that's how most people would handle this. And while that's a totally valid way of doing things, it would be a very tedious endeavor. It would take forever, and most people would give up after a little while, myself included. Thankfully, we have Platter, and it's kind of a hybrid mod where you're able to do a little bit of plopping and a little bit of zoning, and the result is that things happen really quickly. Let me show you how it works. The first time you load into a save with Platter, you're going to be greeted with this really nice tutorial on what it is and how it works. What it basically says is that Platter adds parcels to the game. There are a couple of ways that you can access these parcels, either by going into the zoning menu and clicking on the Platter tab, or by typing Control P, which will bring you directly to that menu. Once you're in the Platter tab, you're going to be greeted with a number of options. It's a really powerful tool that lets you adjust a whole bunch of different options with these parcels. Things like whether it's pre-zoned or not. There are reasons why you may want to include the zoning up front or leave it completely blank and zone it in yourself. You're also able to adjust the snapping options, adjust the road setback, and adjust the parcel width and depth on the fly with shortcuts, which means that this is a tool that you can use really quickly. You could also toggle whether you are able to see the zoning grid or contour lines, meaning that you can respect the topography if you want to, and you should. There are also a number of really advanced ways to use Platter. If you want to use it with the line tool or the advanced line tool or move it or zoning bylaw or any number of mods, you can absolutely use Platter in conjunction with those mods. And that means that the sky is the limit. Your creativity is the limit to what you can do with this mod. And one of the things that I love about this is because you're completely severing zoning from roads, it means that you can adjust roads, you can nudge them over, upgrade them, downgrade them, and not lose your buildings. And then finally, it warns you that Platter is an experimental beta mod. You can remove Platter from your save, so if you decide to use it, place some buildings, and then decide it's not for you, there is a way to remove it, and I'll show you how to do that. But it is an experimental mod, and if you just remove it from your playset, you're gonna get gray boxes all over the place. So there is a way to safely remove it, and I will show you how to do that. But we'll save that for later. Let's get platting. And like I mentioned, there's a couple of ways to get into Platter. The first is to click on Zones and click on the Platter tab. But I think that the best way to enter Platter is Control P. It's very quick and it brings you right to this tab. Now, once you're in here, there are a number of options. First things first, we'll select a parcel, and I'm gonna go with the 2x2. And then I have a couple of options. The first is, do I want to have something that is pre-zoned or unzoned? Now, there are reasons why you might want to go in either direction. Let's start out with unzoned. So let's just say I want to control where zoning's occurring. I can decide my snapping option. I could say, for instance, I want to snap to the side of the road, and you'll see that I have this 2x2 parcel that's sliding right here along Lavender Street. If I want to change the size of this parcel, all I have to do is hold Control and scroll on my mouse wheel, and I'll increase or decrease the depth of the parcel. If I hold down Alt and I use the scroll wheel, I'll increase or decrease the width of the parcel. And if I hold down both, I can do both at the same time. This isn't where things stop. If I want to adjust the setback, I can do that as well. So let's say I don't want this parcel attached to the road. I want it set back 4 meters. If I hold down Shift and Control, I can bump this back up to 8 meters. Now, 8 meters is key because 8 meters is as far back as you can get without the zoning completely breaking and not having power and water at your building. So that safety is already built into the mod. So let's go with something that I know is going to work here. I'm going to narrow it up to be 2 cells deep, and then I'll make it 6 cells wide, and we'll move it 2 meters back from the road. And I'll move this to the other side as well. And then I want to fill in the block. So we'll go 3 units wide here and 3 here. Now, because there's no zoning attached to these parcels, I have to add it in, and I can use the vanilla tools for this. So I'm going to fill it in with some of the North American mixed Old Town style apartments. And one thing you'll notice is that the buildings aren't spawning in even though I have strong demand. The reason for that is Platter has additional options. You might have noticed the P in the top left-hand corner up here. If I click on this, I have 2 options. The Enable Parcels overlay will allow me to see my parcels when I'm not in the zoning menu. So I can toggle that and I can see my Platter parcels. And the second option here will allow buildings to spawn into parcels that I've placed and zoned. This is the reason why buildings are not appearing right now. So if I click this, boom, all the buildings fill in. Now, you might wonder why I would ever have this deselected. Well, if you like to zone when the game is running like I do, you might want to have this deselected because it'll allow you to move your parcels. You can see right here, I've got this gap, and that's going to be problematic. I could use Move It to repair this, but it's going to cause a problem. I'm selecting the Platter parcel, not the building, and I'll have to select the building separately from the parcel if I want to line things up. So you might want to just be a little bit more careful and get it right up front. And the way to do that would be to place all your parcels. And then when you notice that you have issues, you either use Move It or the built-in relocate function to make them perfect. So if I want to use the relocate function, I just select this, Control R, And now I can use the vanilla relocate function to slide things around. And if I want a lot of precision, I'll just use move it. And now that I have things situated perfectly, I can add my zoning once again and allow the buildings to spawn in. And look at these two blocks. The block that I controlled the zoning on looks so much better than the block that I just placed these couple of assets on. But in both cases, this is far beyond what I could do with the vanilla tools, and it didn't take all that long. But here's the thing, there's even more that I can do, and that's because there are other snapping options. So for instance, let's say rather than snapping to the road, I want to snap to the grid. I can do that. And if I do that, I'm able to make the buildings look incredibly straight. And then by using Move It, I can clean things up entirely and center things once again. And then we also have one more snapping option. If we click on No Snapping, we can completely freeform this however we'd like. And this is really helpful in areas where you have things like an eyebrow. So right here, for instance, we could snap onto the side of the road until we get to here, and now it's overlapping that cul-de-sac and wrapping kind of oddly. If I click on No Snapping, I can freely place this. And that little circle at the end of the parcel is where the building is actually going to face. And now I could easily do something like this and have the building spawn in no problem. The one thing to keep in mind is you can't be further than 8 meters away. So you're going to have to eyeball that and get a feel for how far away that is. But it's honestly not all that difficult to figure out after you've done it for a while. Now, this is one way to do it. Like I mentioned, you can zone things in using the vanilla tool, but that's not the way that I actually like to use Platter. I like to pre-select zones. The main reason for this is Platter has a function built in where it will tell you if your parcel size will actually spawn buildings. And this is incredibly helpful. Now, I happen to know that the Mediterranean Heritage medium density zoning doesn't have certain building sizes, and many of them, and we'll be able to see that right up front. So a 2x2, no problem. If I select that in the pre-zone option, it will tell me right away there are 36 2x2 buildings available for this selected zone. But if I modify this and I make this deeper, a 2x3, there are no buildings available in this zoning category that are 2x3. So smaller buildings may zone on this parcel. This is really critical if you want to be able to really control what you're doing. And it's going to make going fast really, really easy. So I'm going to go to a zoning category that I know has a ton of assets, North American low density housing. Now, if I go through here and I try to fill in this cul-de-sac, let's say I go for a 2x2, and I can see that I can't fit another one because my setback is too large. I want to delete this, but if I delete it, the building keeps coming back. Two ways I can resolve that. I can pause this, delete the building, and then delete the parcel, or I could deselect allow spawning of buildings on parcels, delete that building, and now I can easily delete the parcel. You have to think of these as being two separate entities, so you're gonna have to delete both of them, both the building and the parcel. Now, the whole reason that I did that is I'm guessing I can fit this in if I narrow this up. So I'll get this nice and close to the road. And then I can see that I have 3x2 buildings, so I can plop some of these. But if I try to go wider and I do a 4x2, it will say, no, you can't do this. What'll end up happening is I'll get two 2x2s spawning in side by side. And I don't know that that's a big benefit to me. I would rather place these by hand. So I'll do just that. And you know, there's just no way that I could have done this in a vanilla game. And even in a modded game, the only way that I could have accomplished a layout this dense would have been to plop every building one by one. And I didn't have to do that. And I can change the zoning if I want to. There's so many things that I can do with this. I can upgrade roads. Things are not going to be problematic. This just looks absolutely fantastic. This means that I can do basically whatever I want with zoning. But there's even more that I can do. So it's not just about being able to fit irregular parcels. Let's say I have something incredibly regular and I want to control the way that zoning is occurring. I can do that too. So I want to control the directionality of the zoning. So I'm going to snap to the sides of the vanilla grid because I have a perfect grid right here. Then I'm going to be very meticulous and deliberate about the way that I place these zoning cells. So that little circle on the front of this shows where the building is going to front. So I want buildings to mostly front away from Valley Street. So here's what I'll do. I'm going to go with a 2x5 right here. We'll go with a 2x3 on the other side. Let's adjust the width here. We'll go with a 3x3, and then just for the fun of it, a 3x4. Now over here, I want to get cute. We'll go with a 2x3 and another 2x3, and then we'll round it out with a 3x5. Now this is a very complicated zoning pattern, and in a vanilla game, you need to zone everything one by one and play a bit of whack-a-mole. But with Platter, you can see where the parcel lines are. They're glowing in white. And now, if I enable the buildings to zone in, they're going to zone in the exact way that I laid out the parcels. This is magic. This is what I've been missing in Cities Skylines 2. This gives you so much control. So even if you don't want to use this to design a suburb, you can use this in a tight grid to control the directionality of your zoning. This is huge. This is huge. And yes, it takes a little while, but I'd rather take a beat, control things deliberately, and get things exactly the way that I want them to be. And you can do that with Platter. And I didn't even need these parcels to have zoning in them. I could have done this completely independent and filled it in with zoning after the fact, gone through and carefully controlled all my parcels. This is magic. But there's even more. Now, one use case I really love this mod for is for preserving right-of-way for a future arterial expansion. For instance, let's say that I know that Davenport Street right here is going to be a 4-lane arterial in the future, but I don't need it right now. Now that I have Platter, I can increase my setback to 8 meters and add my zoning to the side of the road. Now, ignore my missing UI for a moment. I'm experiencing that bug that many people are experiencing post-Asset Editor update, where I'm missing my UI for mods. But you can see where I'm going with this. Now I've left enough space that if I want to in the future, I can upgrade this road without demolishing all the buildings around it. This is absolutely amazing. This is what I've been looking for since Cities Skylines 1. I've always wanted to be able to preserve right-of-way so I can plan for future land uses, and this now allows me to do it. Let's say that I want to do something a little bit more unique along Larkspur Lane right here, and I want to have the buildings on an angle. That would be next to impossible in a vanilla game, and even in a modded game, getting them to be consistent, that would be really tough. But it's not difficult anymore, because I have the advanced line tool and Platter. When I use them in combination, some really interesting things can happen. So I want these to be rotated. I'm going to say, let's rotate them by 30 degrees and see if that works. It's probably going to mean that these parcels are too far from the road, so I'm going to increase that rotation. I think I could probably get away with 70. Now I want to increase the spacing because I have these 3-unit wide parcels. That's pretty good. Let's say that I want to go with 2 units though. Control will adjust the depth. Alt will adjust the width. Now I can bring them closer and plop them. Check this out. This is basically magic. This is wild. So anything that you can do with the advanced line tool, you can do with Platter. Anything that you can do with the line tool in the vanilla game, you can do with Platter. And really, the sky's the limit. Think about all the different combinations of mods that you might be able to use. A mod like zoning bylaw, if you have custom zoning, you could theoretically place that within these parcels. And it also means that if you want to replace one of these buildings with, let's say, a signature building, you can do that as well. And I can do that because Platter is creating a brand new zoning grid. Look at that. I was able to take these signature buildings and line them up in the exact same angle as my zone buildings, all because I'm using Platter. And my goodness, this looks just like my trailer park in Bailey, but it was much easier to do and it's much more flexible. This is so cool. But wait, there's even more. This neighborhood right here is Middleton Hills, and it's one of the first new urbanist communities in all of North America, and it's right here in the Madison area. Now, this is a really difficult place to try to get right with traditional zoning or even by plopping. And one of the things that's going to make using Platter kind of strange is that many of the assets have fences, which makes it feel like you don't have parcels. Well, we've got a solution for that. I'm going to call this going full Canadian moose. Let's pop into options. We'll go into Better Bulldozer, and I want to remove the manicured grass and the fences and hedges automatically. So the reason I'm doing this is I want to add them myself. This will allow me to create full parcels, Manor Lord style parcels. So I'll go through here and place all of these buildings, and I'm gonna snap to the sides of a road. Now in real time, it took me about 5 minutes to fill this area in, and honestly, it was really fun to do because I felt like I was in complete control. But here's the part that's really special, and here's why I call it the full Canadian moose. Because I removed all the surfaces and all the fences, I can either decide to add those in myself or just add landscaping and call it a day. The full Canadian moose would be to add individual fences, which I actually don't have the mods to do right now in this mod set. But I could add my own fences with Anarchy, separating, pulling this all the way back to the road, and filling this in, making it feel like we have individual parcels. Now, the way that I would handle it without having my whole slate and array of mods would be just to turn on Anarchy and add some trees through here. And look at that. That looks fantastic. I didn't even add any fences, but not having the grasses underneath just makes it feel like we have separate parcels. It just looks a ton better. This is, I'm ecstatic. I don't really know what else to say. This is great. And then I got to show you the last two options in Platter. Even though they're pretty self-explanatory, you can show the grid. So if you want to show the vanilla grid, you can do that. And if you want to show contour lines, you can do that. I didn't do that because this is a flat map, so not all that useful here. But this could be really helpful if you're building in a really hilly area to be able to select the exact parcel size, butt it up to where the terrain starts, and get everything to be completely perfect right up front. This is going to be an absolute game changer, particularly for hilly builds. But let's say you've gone through, you've used Platter, and you've decided it's just not for you, but you've already built something that you're proud of and that you want to save. If you have Plop the Growables, make everything historical, then go into options and under Platter, hit delete all parcels. That will keep all your buildings in place, but delete all the underlying parcels. This is a way that you can remove Platter from your build, yet still maintain everything that you've built. And I want to give Luca a huge shout out for adding this in here. Didn't need to do that, but it's going to make it a lot less frustrating for people who decide that they don't want to keep the mod in their builds. And this right here is Platter. And I think it's as powerful as your imagination is vast. I can't wait to see what people do with this. I've only scratched the surface of what this thing can do, and I have a feeling that people are going to think of things that are way better than what I've thought of in this little brief tutorial. Now, once again, Platter is not yet available, but the moment it is available, I will shoot out a ping in my Discord to everyone in the server that you can go pick it up on Paradox Mods. Now, one of the really cool things about Luca, the developer of this mod, is that he's just doing this for the fun of it. And he's already starting to think about and work on his next mod, which is Network Tool, the successor to the Network Multi-Tool in Cities Skylines 1. And I've seen some screenshots, and I don't know if I can share them yet, but let me tell you, it looks really good. This is a really talented modder, and it's just another reason why the modding community is so important to both Cities Skylines 1 and 2. Thank you guys so much for all of your work. It seriously is game-changing. And for someone like me, it makes the game so much more fun. It brings me back to the game every time I feel discouraged, and it makes me want to keep playing. This has single-handedly really sparked a lot of creativity for me and made me want to build a whole bunch of things in Cities Skylines too. But with that, I think that we're going to leave it here, and I really hope that you've enjoyed this one. If you did, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so. And I want to thank you so much for your time today. There's a million things that you could have been doing, but you decided to hang out with me and go over Platter, and for that, I appreciate you and I appreciate your time. And I want to give a huge shout out to Luca for all of the communication that we've had while I was putting this video together. We were talking through the way that the mod works. He was helping me with issues that I was encountering and even fixing bugs that I encountered, which was super cool. Just a really cool member of the community, and I've really enjoyed our conversations, so I can't wait to continue them in the future. And once again, thank you all so much. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.